Many thanks to PPA for sponsoring this week's video.
So honestly, there's really two reasons. The first reason is that I just forget to mention it a lot of times, but the second reason is that I usually like to save this type of communication for my monthly email newsletter, which if you're not signed up for that, I'll put links below or links above here if you want to check that out. I sent out a free 30-minute Lightroom tutorial video. It's kind of a way to say thanks if you do sign up. But like I said, I'll put links around if you want to check that out. But I've gotten a ton of emails and comments recently as to whether or not I run workshops. And I do run workshops. I don't do a ton of them though. I think this year I've got 6 or maybe 7 scheduled. Some of them have already completed, but I do still have spots available in my Iceland workshop this July. A couple spots available for my Colorado Fall workshop, which I believe is towards the end of September. Very excited for both of those. And then I have some really exciting international workshops planned for 2023, going to the Lofoten Islands, going to Patagonia, the Dolomites, and Greenland. Very pumped for those, but I'll put links below and above here if you want to check out the workshop page of my website, you can. And I do have the 4 winners selected for the giveaway from the 200K giveaway from a couple weeks ago. And let me tell you, that was absolutely incredible. I did not expect that many people to enter the giveaway. I was absolutely floored, hands down, the most popular giveaway I have ever done. And I can't wait to share the details of that with you in a few moments. But as far as the reason you clicked on this video, the rule of thirds, is it a dying compositional technique? Is it something that you should stray away from? Should you no longer use it? Is there possibly a better solution out there? That is the topic of this week's video. And I broke this video down into 2 simple parts, with the first part being the problem and the second part being the solution. So to jump right into it, when it comes to composition, there's really 2 most commonly used or commonly applied techniques. The very first technique is a center-weighted composition, as you can see right here, where you basically put the overall subject right smack dab in the dead center of your frame. In this type of a photograph, it definitely creates a very peaceful, a very harmonious, and a very balanced photograph. And it does have a very calming quality to it. But I think you would admit that it's not necessarily the most exciting compositional technique out there. Now, it does work well. I personally love a center-weighted composition, but it only works well in a very specific situation. But no matter how you slice it, it's definitely not the most exciting compositional technique out there, but it works in some situations. But the most commonly used, hands down, compositional technique that exists today is the rule of thirds. And the rule of thirds, the main premise here, is to take your main subject, which in this situation is the lighthouse, and take it away from the center of your frame and push it off to the left or push it off to the right. And I overlaid the rule of thirds grid here so you can see, and as you can clearly see, the lighthouse is right at this intersecting point here. And that's really the main purpose, or I should say the main use case of the rule of thirds, is to divide your frame into 9 equal parts and put areas of interest on these intersecting points here. And it's meant to create a more dynamic, a more complex photograph, to look a little bit more energetic. But, and here's another example right here where you can see the actual cliff face right here is pushed way off to the right of the scene. And if I overlay the rule of thirds grid, you can see that that cliff face is right on this intersecting point right here. And it's meant to create tension in the viewer because it's not right in the center of the photograph. If you remember, a center photograph is very balanced, it's very calming and peaceful and harmonious. So if you do the opposite of a center-weighted composition and you move the object, your main focus points away from the center, that's going to create that tension in the viewer. So that's really one of that's probably the most popular, I guess, thinking behind the rule of thirds. Now, I personally don't use the rule of thirds anymore. I haven't used it in quite a few years, but I do use it for one aspect, and it has to do with where I put the horizon in my overall photograph. So this particular scene right here, I put the horizon in the upper third of the photograph, mainly because I felt that the foreground here and the midground is much more interesting. This area is much more interesting than the sky. So I wanted to include more of this in my frame. So I put the horizon line on the upper rule of thirds here. Here's another example here. It is the exact opposite of the previous use case where I find the sky to be much more interesting than the ground right through here, the foreground and I guess a little bit of the midground. So I wanted to capture more of the sky in my photograph. So I put the rule of thirds in the bottom third of the image. So I do think that the rule of thirds has a good purpose, especially when it comes to a guideline as to where to put the horizon in a photograph. Now, the problem. Now, the problem with the rule of thirds, in my personal opinion, is twofold. And the first problem, the first issue, is the fact that the rule of thirds is so simple. The rule of thirds is so basic, it is so easy to apply, and the rule of thirds is so easy to teach that everybody is doing it. Everybody is using the rule of thirds, it seems like. And it's gotten to the point now, the popularity has exploded to where half of the photographs I see, my photos included from when I first got started, it's all using the rule of thirds. So everyone's composing their photographs the same exact way. And, photographers look at photographs different than non-photographers do. But when I look at an image, if it's using the rule of thirds to a T, that's the first thing I notice. I don't even notice the image. I notice the compositional tool that was being applied in that particular situation. And I think that this is a good example of the problem right through here. So if we come up here to the develop module, and I'm going to open this up here, and let's just slide this over to where this rock is right dead center of the frame right there. So this is by far the most important aspect of the photograph, is this incredible stone right through here, and the way the waves are retreating and interacting with the stone. That's what I love the most about this foreground and midground. But if I put it smack dab in the center, that's not super exciting. That's not creating any kind of tension in me. So if I use the rule of thirds, let's come up here, and as you can see, I have the rule of thirds grid overlay. And you can toggle through all of these by hitting the shortcut key O. And now we have the rule of thirds. And if I wanted to push it off to the right side, if I wanted to push that stone off to the right side using the rule of thirds, I could simply just grab it and start to move it over to about right there. I don't want to cut off this area right through here because I like that, but about right there I think looks pretty good. And if I hit close here, now you can see that that center stone is clearly not in the center of the photograph any longer. It is using the rule of thirds and it is pushed far off to the right. But does the image look any better? Do you feel tense by looking at it? Is it more interesting and more dynamic? Honestly, personally, I don't think it is. I actually find it to be kind of distracting, and I think it looks extremely obvious. Now, the solution to all of this. So this is the rule of thirds grid overlaid on here. Now, what I find to be a much better grid to use is something that's called the pie grid, or more commonly known as the golden ratio grid. And here it is right here. Now, it's really important to see the difference between the two. So this right here is the rule of thirds, and this right here is the golden ratio grid. And if you notice the center area right through here, see how large this is? And then when we switch it, you can see that it gets smaller. Now also pay attention to the left and right vertical line. This is the rule of thirds, this is the golden ratio. Rule of thirds, golden ratio. So that left and right vertical line moves in and that center area gets smaller. Here's another good example right here of an incredible lighthouse on the coast of North Carolina that I absolutely love. But this is the this is the rule of thirds grid. And if you pay attention to the center area and the right and left vertical lines, this is the golden ratio. Once again, rule of thirds, golden ratio. So you can see that the golden ratio grid basically moves everything in tighter to the center. It's not in the center, but it's not so exaggerated as the rule of thirds is. Now here's a good example right here from the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm going to come up here to the crop tool. And to overlay the golden ratio grid, you just hit the shortcut key O inside of Lightroom. But this right here is the rule of thirds. And if I go ahead and hit 0, and real quick though, let me go ahead and line this up to where it's right at the rule of thirds. Let me go ahead and turn this padlock off here. Let's shift this over to where that little center ball right there, that's what I'm kind of using, lined up perfectly with the rule of thirds. So I'm going to hit close there. Now that right there is using the rule of thirds, where that vertical line is right dead center of the Golden Gate Bridge. Now if I come back up here to the crop tool and let's hit O and let's overlay the golden ratio. Now you can see that that right vertical line is much farther to the left. So let's line this up. So I'm going to scoot this over now. Once again, we're using that little ball right there as my frame of reference and hit close. Now to me, this looks much better. The Golden Gate Bridge isn't so far off to the right. There's not so much negative space on the left side anymore. This, to me, looks much more balanced. When I look at this photograph, I can clearly see that the Golden Gate Bridge is not in the dead center of the frame, but it's also not thrown way off to the left or way off to the right. It doesn't scream out. This photograph is using the rule of thirds. this looks to me like a much more pleasing composition, and I feel a little bit more tension because now I'm a photographer, so I look at photographs a little bit different. But when I look at this photograph now, I kind of wonder, I can clearly see that the Golden Gate Bridge is not in the center, but how far off center is it? And that to me creates more tension than making it so obvious that the subject is so far off to the right or so far off to the left and so far away from the center of the photograph. This to me creates more tension. Another good example right here. This is a very, very good example of this. If I open up the crop tool here, you can see this is the base of Yosemite Falls. And let me overlay the rule of thirds. You can see that that vertical line of the rule of thirds is right in the middle of the base of Yosemite Falls is what I'm trying to say. Now, if I hit close here, this photograph to me looks very odd. It does not look natural. It almost looks like this composition was done by mistake. There is so much negative space on this side, and the main area of interest right here is crammed on the right side. This photograph almost feels a little claustrophobic to me. But if I come up here to the crop tool, and let's hit the shortcut key O, and I'm going to overlay the golden ratio. And I'm going to move this over here to about right there. Maybe we could even open it up a little bit. And this right here looks much better than the rule of thirds because the overall main area of interest, I should say, is not pushed so far to the right. It's not in the center, but it looks much more realistic in this particular situation. Once again, here is the rule of thirds right here, and this is the golden ratio right there. And I think that this looks much better. There's not as much negative space on this side here. Actually, this is really the way I would set it up, to where there wasn't that much negative space on the left side, to about like that. Maybe bring this side just a little bit to about right there. But as you can see, this right here, the waterfall is not in the center of the photograph, but it's also not so obviously over to one side versus the other. And I think that that is a very good compositional technique to use that golden ratio in that particular situation. Here's one more quick example here where let me overlay the rule of thirds. So if I use the rule of thirds here, this would basically put this tree about, let's pull it up a little bit. I'm going to line that tree right up on the rule of thirds grid right there. And we'll hit close here, and it doesn't look too bad, but it does look very obvious, and that tree is pushed pretty far off to the right side. Now if I come up here to the crop tool and hit the shortcut key O again, now you can see that the golden ratio, that line is pushed much farther to the left. So if I wanted to accommodate for that, I'll bring this side over a little bit, maybe bring the bottom up a touch, put it to about maybe right there. And now these two trees are more in the center of the photograph, but it's not so, they're not centered, I should say. It's not a center weighted composition. They're more towards the center, but it's not so obvious as the rule of thirds are. And to me, this creates more tension than the rule of thirds, because when I look at this photograph, I kind of pause for a minute, wondering if the overall main subject of the photograph is in the dead center of that frame. And to me, this creates a much more dynamic and much more interesting and much more tense and, I guess, complex composition versus the rule of thirds. So I have been using this golden ratio technique really for the past couple of years. And what's so interesting is when you start to use this technique, and you don't have to use this rule, this grid overlay. If you don't use Lightroom and maybe whatever post-processing software you use doesn't have a crop overlay, basically you could just take where dead center is of your frame, where the rule of thirds is of your frame, and just place your main areas of interest in between that zone. But the ultimate goal here would be to just not put something so far to the right or so far to the left. Try and make it your rule of thirds look a little bit more invisible. Push it a little bit closer to the center, and I think it'll make much more tense and much more or interesting and dynamic photographs. So it's a great compositional technique that I've been using recently. Now, before I do announce the 4 giveaway winners, I do just want to say a real quick thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Professional Photographers of America, or PPA for short.
When you join PPA for a super low monthly cost of only $27.92, you get game-changing resources like data loss recovery services and unparalleled education. But did you know that PPA also offers incredible marketing and sales tools as well? These resources are designed to increase exposure, improve your overall sales process, and grow your understanding of marketing within the digital landscape. Some of these marketing tools include customizable brochures to easily showcase your work to clients, downloadable price lists, tutorials and videos, and even popular ebook titles such as Successful Photography Sales and Marketing 101 for Photographers.
So join a community of over 33,000 photographers and check out the link in the description below and receive $25 off your PPA membership today. So as far as the giveaway is concerned, I got my notes right here. There was at the time of filming this video, there was over 2,600, well over, almost 2,700 entries to enter the giveaway. And I do want to apologize real quick. The spam bots were in full effect on this giveaway. I did everything I could to try and fight against them.
Not today, not today. I have been battling against the YouTube spam bots for the last 3 hours, and we're making progress here. I have been blocking spam robots and reporting them and deleting comments. So if you got any weird comment about Telegram or any kind of text message on today's YouTube video, don't worry about it. I got y'all. I'm fighting back. Not today. Not today, friend.
And I do think we won. I think we won the battle there, but it did cause a little bit of confusion. And I answered all the emails and as many comments as I could as to the confusion related to that. So hopefully that won't happen again. I probably have to think of a different way to do these giveaways moving forward because I normally don't have that issue on this channel. But as soon as I did this giveaway, they were all out in full force. But nevertheless, almost 2,700 entries. And YouTube is kind of a lonely job sometimes. So to be able to see that many comments and words of encouragement and congratulatory remarks, it really meant a lot to me. So if you took the time to comment on that video or watch the video, I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Now, as far as the giveaway winners are concerned, whoops, wrong mouse. I have one for each bag. Once again, we're giving away the Shimoda Action X30 pack, the Shimoda Explorer 40 bag, the Peter McKinnon Nomadic camera bag, and the Mindshift Trailscape 18-liter pack. So, completely random drawings. So, for the Shimoda Action X30 bag, the winner is a gentleman by the name of Paul Ostrom. And if I pronounce your last name wrong, I really do apologize. I'm doing the best I can, but I'll paste the comment on the screen here. But Paul, congratulations. You won the Shimoda Action X30. Now the winner of the Shimoda Explorer 40 bag, this is the version 1 bag, is Sue McKeithen. So Sue, congratulations, you are the winner of the Shimoda Explorer 40 pack. As far as the Peter McKinnon Nomadic camera bag, this is Peter McKinnon's very first bag that he released. The winner is Alan Travis. So congratulations, Alan, you are the winner of that bag. And the final bag is the Mindshift Trailscape 18-liter. I think I had that name correct. But the winner of that bag is Chris Gary. But Chris, congratulations, you are the winner of that bag. So if you are one of the 4 winners, please send me an email on my website or send me a direct message on Instagram. That's usually a pretty easy way, excuse me, to get in touch with me and let me know where I should send these prizes to, and I'll make sure I get those out to you this week or as soon as you get in touch with me. So once again, thank you all so very much for entering that giveaway. I really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions in regards to the topic of this week's video, definitely leave me a comment below, and I'll make sure I get back in touch with you as soon as possible. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you watching this week's video, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.